Another Dead Teenager, a Paul Turner Mystery, Book 3. Author, Mark Richard Zubro. Stonewall Inn Mysteries. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 5. Back at Area 10 headquarters, they piled their lunch of takeout deli sandwiches on top of major crime worksheets, daily major incident logs, and supplementary reports, all waiting to be filled out. The tedious process of documenting everything they'd done that day and catching up on what they hadn't had time to fill out earlier could take as much time as all they'd done so far. Randy Carruthers bounced in as Fenwick took his last bite of dill pickle. Randy had his butt aimed at the edge of Fenwick's desk. But the bulky older cop had a glare and an open fist, ready to swat the young cop away. The annoying detective stood next to the desk. He bounced on his toes. "This is great! We've got all this overtime because everybody's so caught up with your murders." "I'm glad you're happy," Fenwick said. "I've never seen so many reporters outside," Carruthers said. "If I were you, I'd take one into your confidence and leak positive stuff to the press. That way you'll have one friend for sure with them." "When did you become a press relations expert?" Fenwick asked. "There's supposed to be openings coming up in the department press office. You can get a promotion and work with the public. You don't have to worry about dead bodies all the time." "Commander approve your transfer yet?" Fenwick asked. "I talked to him once. He didn't encourage me." Carruthers shook his head. "Nobody around here ever encourages me." "You tried the latest yet, Randy?" Fenwick asked. "What?" Randy asked, eager that someone was taking a slight bit of interest in him. "I heard it's all the rage. Bungee jumping without a cord." Carruthers smiled for a moment. Then a frown began to cloud his round features. Before he could respond, Carruthers' partner, Rodriguez, marched into the squad room, saw Carruthers, gave a sigh, audible through the entire room, came over and clamped his hand around his partner's upper arm. "We've got a dead homeless person, Randy. Just your type of crime. Let's go." They trudged off together. Fenwick wadded up the paper from his lunch and sailed it into the trash basket 5 feet away. He rummaged on top of his desk. "We got preliminary reports here someplace." Turner picked up an inch-thick pile of computer printouts from the top of his desk and handed half of them to Fenwick. "Blessing's too damn efficient for his own good," Fenwick opined. Big cops had already talked to a number of people connected with the case. The canvass of the neighborhood, abandoned and deserted as it might have seemed, would take quite a while. Owners of businesses and buildings anywhere nearby would have to be tracked down. Turner and Fenwick would have to do follow-ups on many of these. The documents Fenwick was grumbling his way through. Blessing had flagged those of the most important people for immediate interviews. If at all possible, Turner and Fenwick would contact the most significant ones today. "Look at this shit," Fenwick growled after 10 minutes of scanning reports. "What?" Fenwick held one up. "I don't even have to read this one. I know what it'll say." "Who is it?" "This is from the fast food franchise employee. I can hear it now. It'll be this kid with huge zits. He'll tell us he saw somebody come in covered up into his elbows in blood and gore, and that the guy ordered a Big Mac, fries, and a soft drink. He leaves, and the kid doesn't tell anybody. People come into this McDonald's all the time for their after-murder snack." Commander Poindexter entered and asked for an update. They told him what they'd done so far that day. "What's next?" Poindexter asked. Fenwick sighed. "We talked to..." He glanced at the forms. "The owner of the building, fast food employees, the kid who found the body." "Parents are bringing him in," Poindexter said. "Probably want to pamper their little tyke," Fenwick said. "And we've got the owner of a nearby business, and..." "I've got the idea," Poindexter said. He set his butt on the edge of Fenwick's desk. Randy Carruthers would have gotten a swat. Poindexter received a thin smile. "This whole thing is hell," he said quietly. "I know you guys are busting your ears. Probably haven't slept more than a couple hours." They nodded. "Can't be helped. We've got famous kids dead. Public doesn't like athlete heroes who are good kids to get killed for no reason. I don't like that. I'm not real fond of it either, Fenwick said. Poindexter sighed. I know. We're pushing everybody as hard as possible. Whatever you need, it's yours. I could use a signed confession from somebody, Fenwick said. Poindexter often found Fenwick amusing. Not today. You got people to talk to. Get back out there, the commander ordered. Turner and Fenwick plodded out to the car. Who first? Fenwick asked. How about the owner of the building? Who's he? She, Aranka Bezerkowitz. There's an ethnic joke waiting to happen. Just think if she married you. She'd be Aranka Bezerkowitz. Fenwick. Lucky her. Maybe I'll stick with Madge. Where to? Lakeshore Drive, just north of Oak Street. At the exclusive address a block away from the Drake Hotel, they spoke with the doorman, who then phoned the woman they needed to talk to. They took an oak-paneled elevator up to the 8th floor, then walked down the hall to a wide-open door. Aranka Bezerkowitz bustled up to them from inside. Come in, you wonderful boys. She smiled and patted their arms and marched beside them, all the while making little squeaking and chirping noises. Aranka Bezerkowitz must have been 60 years old. She wore red plastic frame glasses, a flower print blouse tucked into jeans. That would have been fashionably tight on someone 40 years younger and 20 pounds lighter. She waved them forward dramatically into a room furnished in basic plastic, all graded in primary colors. A bright yellow couch with red cushions and orange chairs with fuchsia cushions were set around a blue coffee table, on which were brightly colored candlesticks from Sec Lapage. The carpet was a checkerboard pattern of pink and green. She offered them coffee, tea, cookies, sandwiches, beer, or hard liquor. Fenwick said, Miss Bezerkowitz, we need to ask you about what happened at your warehouse. Oh, my, yes. It was awful. Can you imagine those poor, beautiful young boys? Such nice families. I watched every game the father won for a championship. All the hugging among those boys. I think it's wonderful that men can hug today. We have too many macho men afraid of touching. She put her fingers in front of her mouth and squeaked. Turner wanted to say, just the facts, ma'am. Fenwick asked, did you kill Jacob Goldstein and Frank Douglas? One hand dropped to her lap. The other flew to her chest. She made inarticulate, burbling noises for half a minute. When she finally got her breath, she gave them a cheery smile and said, don't you boys try and be amusing. I'm just shocked that such a thing could happen. Why, just last week I was talking to my neighbor, Floribunda. She had an operation last year and doesn't get around much anymore. But she almost got smugged walking right outside our building. You just can't walk anywhere anymore. She offered them refreshments again. Turner declined, but Fenwick told her yes, please. You hungry? Turner asked as she left. Anything to get her out of the room and not listen to that voice. It reminds me of the less pleasant aspects of fingernails on slate. I don't recall any pleasant aspects of fingernails on slate. They heard Aranka returning. Before she was halfway into the room, Fenwick stood up and used his don't fuck with me tone. Miss Bezerkowitz, we've got a murder to solve. I want 1 or 2 word answers to my questions. One of the cardinal rules of detective technique was that when you had a witness or suspect talking, you never shut them up. In this case, however, Turner had no quarrel with Fenwick's method. Aranka began to speak, but Fenwick took a step closer to her. He towered over her. 1 or 2 words, Fenwick growled. She gulped as she gazed up at his massive bulk. She placed the tray of goodies on the blue plastic coffee table. Fenwick asked, how long have you owned the warehouse? Well, my husband bought it before he died. How long? Fenwick asked again. She folded her arms over her chest, glared at Fenwick, and said, 2 years. How often are you there? Never. Turner said. Miss Beskowitz, it would help if we could have as much of a history of the building as we can get as current owner. Anything you can tell us might make a difference in our investigation. We can get the official records from the county, but if you could tell us a bit, it might help catch the killers. She smiled at Turner, but looked wearily at Fenwick. We lived in 15 different states in 20 years. My husband began selling computers for a number of different companies before he moved into developing interactive programs. We did well, and he started investing in real estate around the country. Before we moved to Chicago, we lived mostly on the West Coast. She listed all the cities. My favorite was El Paso. They had the nicest people. Once you've seen all the pretty neighborhoods, you realize that setting is nice, but really, it's the people you meet, the ones who become your friends. That's what really counts. She drew a breath, and Turner quickly asked, When did you move to Chicago? About a year and a half ago. My husband bought the building a few months before we moved to town. He thought it might be a good investment. He died before he could do anything with it. I've been trying to sell it, but I haven't had any luck. Who was the previous owner? I have no idea. And you have Illinois Safe Serve as security? I think that's it. They look after a bunch of old warehouses and factories. They have offices in this dingy, low-slung affair way on the west side of the city. My Alfred, he was my husband, took me there once. It was filthy. Dirt on the floor that hadn't been cleaned in years. They made a very bad impression on me, but they were cheap. A little more expense might have prevented a murder, Fenwick said. She gave him a mystified look, but before she could launch into another spiel, they left. As they drove to the McDonald's at 18th and Halstead, Turner said, She would have stopped talking sometime this century. She would have been dead long before then. If we had a tape of a conversation with her, no jury would convict me. At the McDonald's, they found that the kid they were supposed to interview was the 35-year-old assistant manager. He was Hispanic, slender, with soulful eyes, and what in 19th century Europe would have been known as a dueling scar on his right cheek, running from his ear to the corner of his mouth. After introductions, they sat at the front of the restaurant. What happened Friday morning? Turner asked. I came in here about 1, just before we closed. Really excited, breathing hard, arms waving around, demanded all kinds of stuff. The other employees had rung off their registers. I took care of them. Can you describe him for us? I've thought a lot about it since those 2 uniformed officers stopped in. He was white, probably in his 30s. Thin, short, black hair, I think. No glasses. Dark clothes, but I don't remember if they wore jeans or anything. When he left, he got in a truck. It wasn't new. Looked real beat up. Did you get the license number? Color of the truck? No. After he started his engine, I forgot about him. I wanted to get out of here, and I had a lot to do to shut the place down for the night. Back in the car, Fenwick asked, Is that a description of our killer? Even a full meal after committing murder? Beats the hell out of me. We've had killers who've eaten parts of victims, so I suppose a little snack after torturing and killing a couple guys can't be completely ruled out in the life of a deranged murderer. It could happen. We'll add it to the computer data. Hard to run around the city looking for a thin 30-year-old. When Turner and Fenwick got back to Area 10 headquarters, they found the parents of the kid who'd discovered Goldstein's body in the warehouse. They were talking to Commander Poindexter on the first floor of the station. After the introductions, the mother asked, Is our boy going to be safe? They were a Hispanic couple in their middle 30s. We just want to talk to him, see if he can give us some memories. Maybe think of something important. We punished him for playing where he wasn't supposed to and for skipping school, the mother said. Our boy, Herman, says that the kids in the neighborhood hung out there all the time up to the killing. Nobody goes there now. Herman will never play there again. I told him to be honest with you, the father said, but I'm worried about how this is going to affect him. He found a dead body. He tried to brag to his friends when he thought we couldn't hear. We put a stop to that. We'll be careful, Mr. and Mrs. De La Vega. We'll want to talk to him and all of his friends to learn as much as we can about that building." The two detectives and the commander moved away from the parents. "We got the rest of the kids who used the warehouse?" Fenwick asked. "Yeah. We have a detail keeping them happy in the squad room," Poindexter said. "Well, let's talk to Junior Finder first. Then the rest of them," Turner said. "Do we have the preliminary reports on all of them?" After glancing at the reports, they returned to the third floor. The kid who found the body sat in Fenwick's chair, trying to bounce on the cushion long since flattened by Fenwick's substantial bottom. He must have been 13 or 14. He watched the two cops walk toward him, his eyes alert. He grinned at them. Any adult non-witness or non-boss Fenwick would have roared at and unceremoniously dumped from the chair. Now he simply pulled another one over from the desk next to his. Turner grabbed the chair from behind his desk and brought it around to face the kid. Herman De La Vega eagerly shook hands with the detectives. "This is really cool," Herman said. "Aren't you scared?" Fenwick asked. "This is the police station," Herman said. "This is like television. I'm safe." "How about when you found the body?" Turner asked. The boy's face clouded. "It was awesome," he whispered. "I was a little scared, but I still looked. All my friends think it was really cool. I was really lucky. I'm glad they weren't with me. Now I'm a celebrity. If my parents let me, I think I could be on television." Turner wanted to say all kinds of parental things about not playing in that kind of place and being careful and make dire predictions about what could happen, but Herman was as close to a witness as they had so far. These cops would let Herman prattle on for hours. They might want to shut up Mrs. Berserkowitz, but Herman could do anything short of reading aloud from the phone book, and Turner and Fenwick would smile encouragingly. "My mom and dad said you might arrest me for being in there. I'm not going to get arrested, am I? I didn't do anything wrong." Turner let the boy feel uncomfortable for a minute, then said, "You need to tell us all that you can. If you're honest, you won't be in trouble." The boy nodded eagerly. Turner asked, "How long have you been playing in the building?" "We started going inside about 2 years ago. Nobody ever guards it. Sometimes homeless people sleep there. They try to chase us out sometimes. Once in a while, we chase them. One of the gangs had it as a headquarters for a while, so we couldn't play there. And then they found a better place, and we could go back." "What happened last Friday?" "A bunch of us were supposed to ditch school. I got away first." "You ditch school often?" "No, once in a while, when it's too boring." "So what happened?" "Nobody else was there. The room where we usually hang out is way down the corridor and 1 floor up from the room the dead guy was in. But I could see the body from the hallway. I remember I was scared and I almost ran, but I called out and nobody answered, and the body didn't move, so I figured the guy was dead. I didn't go in there. I ran for the cops." "Did you see anybody in the street when you arrived?" "No. There's no traffic around those buildings. That's why we play around there. Nobody bothers us." "Did you notice anything unusual at any time? Hear anything strange?" "No, just saw the body." "How about in the last couple of weeks? Seen any cars or trucks around the place? Anybody hanging around even last summer? An adult asking questions?" The kid thought for a minute. "I can't remember that kind of thing. I for sure don't remember an adult asking us questions. I'd remember that." "How about your friends?" "I don't know. Probably not. They'd have said something, I think." "We'll talk to each of them in a few minutes." They assembled the kids outside a conference room in the rear of the 4th floor. 6 kids, including Herman, sat eating donuts at a 6-foot brown folding table. Their chatter and activity hushed. As the detectives neared them, Herman seemed to be pleased with his position as the one introducing the cops. 3 of the kids wore baseball caps, turned backwards on their heads. They had on baggy pants, over which they wore loose shirts that hung outside multicolored t-shirts, draped to their knees. The smallest one of the group, Enrico, didn't wear a hat. He had his hair cut nearly bald on the side, but left on an inch long and flat on top. He looked to be only 12. He wore a junior wrestling champ t-shirt tucked into tight jeans, the other without a hat. Alfredo snarled, grinned, or popped his gum while poking and punching his buddies. He reached for one guy's cap, but his hand got a lazy swat before it reached its destination. He was a trifle taller than the others and more heavy-set. His t-shirt was taut over an ample belly, and the sleeves were too short for his arms. The cuffs of his ill-fitting jeans were frayed, the legs bunched against his sneakers, and his belly sagged over the waist. The back pocket flapped half off. The clothes seemed more hand-me-down and mismatched than trendy grunge. They took the kids one by one into the conference room. It differed from the all-gray interrogation room by having dull brown folding chairs, a larger dull brown table, and walls painted dull brown. Turner explained to each one, "We need background information from you guys. We need your help to catch a killer." The three with the caps weren't much help. Enrico, the smallest one, immediately said, "He wasn't from around here." "How do you know?" "Everybody would talk about it. Everyone talks. We know everything that goes on." He puffed out his chest in bold assertion. "But so?" Fenwick asked. "Yeah, and none of us is in a gang. But we hear, we know." "How long have you guys been playing there?" "We don't play, man. We hang out." Turner found himself only half listening. His fatigue was catching up to him. He sat up straighter in his chair and concentrated. "Some of us been hanging out there for 5 years, Enrico said. "I've been the longest. I'm 15 now." Small for his age. "What does hanging out mean?" Turner asked. "We go there when our parents hassle us, or just to be with our friends. Sometimes we get fries and soda pop if anybody's got any money. We don't do drugs or drink. We talk about our girlfriends, hang out. We always use the back room. You found when we were little, we used to scare each other about getting up to our meeting room in the dark without a flashlight. Alfredo was the last one to finally do it. When the gangs were around a year ago, we had to be careful for a while." "Why'd they leave?" "It got too wrecked up, even for them." "We don't mind. Tell me about recently," Turner said. "Think of even the slightest thing unusual or out of the way at that place. Anything you saw, heard, or even thought you saw or heard." Enrico frowned thoughtfully for several minutes. "Anything," Turner prompted. Enrico said, "The street outside there is so quiet. The new guy fixing his place up says hello, but he works every night and doesn't hassle us. We get homeless in the winter sometimes, but it's too far from their territory. Too far to walk to where they get handouts, or ask people for money, or from any other missions." After an hour of talking to the teenagers, some of the cops' increased knowledge added up to 0. Turner and Fenwick watched the group troop out. Fenwick leaned back in his chair. "Is this day ever going to end?" he asked. "Killer took a hell of a lot of chances," Turner said. How did he know there weren't gang members, neighborhood kids, or a stray homeless derelict to accidentally interrupt him? Maybe he wants to be caught. Or is that just serial killers? Or maybe he's been around for a long time and knows the area. "Did we get that serial killer profile crap?" Turner hunted on his desk. "I thought it was here. They all set fires and hurt furry little animals as kids. Don't look for it. Blessing will have the details upstairs somewhere. I suppose we'll have to refresh our memories on that shit." "Is this a serial killer?" "I don't think 2 equals a serial killer." "Thought I was going to fall asleep there for a few minutes," Fenwick said. "I started wondering who was asking all those boring questions," Turner said. "Then I realized it was me." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't suppose we could just leave all this and run off to Canada for some fishing." The door to the conference room clicked open. Alfredo, the more heavy-set teen, stuck his head in. He glanced over his shoulder, and then around the room he slipped inside, hunching himself near the doorway. "What's happening, Alfredo?" Fenwick asked. "Something strange." The cops waited patiently. "Last week, Tuesday, early in the morning, I was there by myself. I slept overnight. Don't tell my parents, please." "If you help us, Alfredo, we'll help you," Fenwick promised. "I was leaving early, just before dawn. I saw this guy drive up. He got out of his car and began creeping around the back of the building. He came inside. He didn't see me. There's a million places to hide around there. He had a flashlight. He explored all over. Alfredo stopped talking and stared at the top of his running shoes. Why didn't you tell us this the first time we talked to you? The guys might have heard, or maybe they thought I'd be talking to you too much, but I want to catch the guy. If I help, will it be on TV? Tell me about the car, Turner said. Red, I think. It was dark. Dark red or too dark to tell what color it was? Dark red. How about the man driving? Bald on top, I could see the hole when he leaned over to get in the building. This big. Alfredo made a hole the size of a baseball with his fingers. Turner watched Fenwick unconsciously finger the patch that had begun on the crown of his head 6 months ago. Alfredo continued. He didn't look real old. Maybe like you guys? Tall or short? Fenwick asked. Maybe medium. What'd you do? As soon as I didn't hear his footsteps, I ran. The detectives tried to jog his memory for another half hour, but got nowhere. Alfredo left. Fenwick sighed. Add one bald guy in a red car to the list. Only a few zillion of those on the planet. The door opened. The sergeant from the desk downstairs said, The guy from the skybox is here. Turner and Fenwick shuffled down to the third-floor interrogation room. Outside the door, Fenwick said, He's the last one, besides the players, to see them alive. Maybe he'll remember something they said that could be important. I'm past tired on this. If he confesses, I'll kiss him. Hell, I'll marry him. They were introduced to Daryl Logan. He wore a gray herringbone sport jacket with patches at the elbow. His shirt was light green and adorned by a white and gray paisley tie. He wore gray slacks and Gucci loafers. He had the slender frame of a runner who occasionally worked out as well. His brown hair was clipped short. They sat in the room of gray walls, gray chairs, and gray table. Logan matched the decor perfectly. I'm a part-time professor and part-time administrator at St. Basil's University, he explained. They divided up the use of the skybox among administrators, select faculty, and visiting dignitaries. It's used quite often to impress people in a position to donate to the school's endowment. College is big business these days. We understand you were in charge of the group that night, Turner said. I acted as more of a liaison. I arranged for the tickets before the game in the skybox. I was supposed to meet the needs, do the bidding of keep happy, obey any commands. I want to move up the academic and administrative ladder. You need to know whose butt to kiss and when, he smiled. I'm a realist. How did Jake Goldstein and Frank Douglas behave that night? Polite, cheerful, unobtrusive, didn't give me any trouble. If he said they were saints, Turner thought he might throttle Daryl Logan on the spot. Turner found himself repeating by rote. Did you notice anything at all, odd or unusual? Daryl frowned as thoughtfully as anyone else they'd questioned in the last 3 days. They might have squabbled briefly about where to go after the game. The detectives waited. Turner saw Fenwick's eyelids begin to droop. What'd you hear? Turner asked. Not much. I think one wanted to go straight home after talking with the players. The other wanted to go somewhere. They saw I could hear and stopped talking. They weren't angry at each other, really. The Goldstein boy did say he needed to get home. This was at halftime. They seemed to laugh and cheer as much after as before their words. Didn't seem like much, but you asked for anything. Turner probed some more, but when Daryl left 15 minutes later, the cop said nothing new. Fenwick said, I'm awake, but not by much. The watch commander came in and told them the owner of a small business across the street and down the block from the murder scene was at his place of business. If Turner and Fenwick wanted to talk to him. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.